somebody saw me, somebody validated me with $500. You know, if that's all it takes to change somebody's life, you know, let's find those people. There's people who are already doing the work, who are already passionate about living the life that they want to live, a positive life, you know, who just don't have the means to do so, you know? Let's find those people. There are many people out there. I'm one of them, you know? There's no way that I can continue my life and not try to pay it forward.
You're listening to the Creatives Off Script podcast, hosted by Assemble, a podcast where we speak to leading creatives across all industries, from film to branding to art, to learn their personal stories of success, gain creative inspiration, and understand new technology that is changing the way creatives work. I'm your host, Nate Watkin. Tristan Irving is a Portland-based street artist who taught himself how to paint as an outlet for recovery. Inspired by Basquiat, Warhol, and Banksy, he is most well known for his striking murals of historical figures, painting colorful renditions of everyone from Frederick Douglass to George Floyd, the latter of which was featured prominently during the protests and led to Tristan being publicly honored by the Portland mayor's office. Welcome to our show, Tristan.
Hey, thanks for having me. How you doing, Nate?
Doing good. Excited to have you. So tell me about like a little bit how you grew up. Were you always this artistic growing up? Did you always have a passion for art?
So yeah, growing up, I did not always have a passion for art. I couldn't even tell you who some of the, you know, famous artists were besides Picasso, you know, the big names and stuff like that. But I couldn't tell you like what their work looked like or anything like that. I could just probably name a few. But no, I never had any interest in museums or anything like that. But growing up, I was definitely always creative, though, in some kind of form or fashion. It's just how I problem solve, you know. Growing up in Camp Caldera, we were always taught to do things differently, you know, so it always made me try to think outside of the box. Just being a city kid in the woods, you know, it always kind of brought me to think of different things, you know. So, yeah, as a kid, I guess I always thought about... just weird and fun things, I guess. Not necessarily art, I guess, at all. I was a drummer when I was a kid, so I did have some creative, and I played the buckets as well, too. You know, so I did have some creative aspects to my life, but not art influence.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned Camp Caldera there, which I want to talk about because it sounds like that had a big impact on your life. But I'm curious to know, what was the period in your life like before that, and how did you find Camp Caldera? How did you get connected with that?
Yeah, before Camp Caldera, I was just a regular kid doing regular things. I don't know, my life it wasn't too much to be, you know, excited about, I guess. I came from a single parent household, a lot of, you know, my dad was a drug addict. There was a lot of like domestic violence going on in my house. There was a lot of stuff that I tried not to remember, I guess. Not a lot of fun stuff. But so that in itself kind of made me kind of get creative with the things that I had, you know, or the kind of how me and my sister entertained ourselves. That, I guess, it kind of the creativity started there, you know. Yeah, and I feel like just being around different opportunities in Portland, like self-enhancement, which was where I found Camp Caldera, just like different outlets, you know, different outlets that other kids were going to. That's kind of where what led me to it. I was never interested in art or anything like that. What led me to Camp Caldera was they had this spiel at SEI and they were talking about horses. And I'm a kid in the city. I don't know anything. Like the most that I see, I love TV and stuff. So I see kids on like TV camping and stuff like that. They don't have a lot of those like camp shows now on TV, reality TV shows. But back when I was a kid, they had like a bunch of like camp reality TV shows and stuff. So I would see those. And when they had this spiel coming to SEI, they was talking about horses and stuff. I wasn't influenced by the art. I didn't care about the art. But what I was interested in is getting out there and going to ride some horses. I was able to go out into the forest, in the woods, whatever, for 10 days and be with some horses. From a kid from the city, that sounds like amazing to me. You know, that is what drew me to Camp Caldera. It didn't have anything to do with art. It wasn't. It was just getting away from and I think a big part of it was too, like it was during the summer too, like 10 days. I didn't have to be like worrying about like whatever was going on in the city during the summer and stuff. That's what drew me there. Just trying to get away. I think it was just an outlet. There was a lot of stuff in my childhood that I just wanted to escape. That wasn't really pleasant. So I feel like what drove me to find these outlets was just trying to escape. Just trying to a new reality. Just the pursuit of happiness. Just trying to. There's more out there. I can see it. Just coming of age, seeing that there's more out there, and there's a lot of things. That I wanted to play with and research. That I just wasn't afforded the opportunities to do. So
tell me a little bit more about Camp Caldera. This was I believe, a nonprofit organization founded by Dan Wieden of Wieden Kennedy to help children discover their artistic side. Or tell me more about that and what that experience was like.
It was dope. Dan, we call him Papa Bear. Papa Bear so when I say Papa Bear, I'm referring to Dan. The Papa Bear, he provided just like an entrepreneur environment for us all. Like we were able to build our classes. We were able to pick what we wanted to be creatively. What it looked like when we signed up. So the horses is what got me there. But I had to do the paperwork and stuff like that. Part of the paperwork is I had to pick like a class, like a discipline. I had to pick a discipline. My discipline, since I was already a drummer, I picked African drumming. That was the worst decision for me to pick African drumming, because once they found out that I was a drummer, every year since then, they put me in drumming class. Whether I signed up for photography, whatever it was, just because I was a pretty good drummer. I played at the Blazer games and stuff like that, like during the halftime shows and stuff. So once they found out I was a drummer, they kind of I kind of became like an assistant, So in that, I had to go and find, it just made me seek other disciplines even more, So I had to go in on my free time, be with the photography class and the video production class and this kind of stuff. It just made me more inquisitive, So what Camp Caldera did, it allowed students to pick a discipline, and you got to kind of focus on that discipline for a year to 4 years, anywhere you get to pick, and it just taught you the ins and outs of that. We were able to have professional equipment, professional standard equipment that they're using in the industry, in our hands. That's not something common. Kids that are underserved from small communities having these $1,000 equipment, video equipment, cameras in their hand, and people telling you to here, go do whatever with it, go, have fun with it. That doesn't happen often, that in itself was empowerment. We felt empowered to be more than what we thought in the city. Mind you, this was before cell phones and stuff like that. When I was growing up, so this was the technology. This was something that was huge for not just me, but for all of us. And it still is huge for them, for the kids there. But putting this technology in their hands, it was just something that being trusted with that for one, it's having that in my hands, and then two, being trusted with that. It just made me feel like an entrepreneur, it made me feel like I was somebody, somebody was able to sit down with me, go from A to B, what a creative process looks like building a board and stuff like that. I was just able to do all that kind of stuff as a kid, produce camp videos. I want one video that I really loved that was a hit when I was a kid, was we did an MTV Cribs version, but it was MTV teepees. So you got to go around to different teepees and stuff like that, and you got to view different teepees and stuff like that, just like an MTV Cribs version, but the teepee edition, So we got to do things like that, as kids. We got to see what was going on out in the world, and we got to do that. We got to copy that, We were able to, hey, this is what's going on. This is what we think is tight out in the world, we tell people who are from Wieden and Kennedy, people who have this knowledge and stuff. We have these ideas, this is what we see going on in the world. This is what we want to make happen, and we made it happen, and we got to go back to the city with these DVDs and show our friends and all this kind of stuff. What we did, we became producers, we became the whole nine. It's easier to think about it now and to kind of give titles to it. Back then, it wasn't like that. We were just having fun. That's kind of what the mission was for Camp Caldera, was to, what Papa Bear was trying to show us and show children is that everything comes from a creative process, essentially, like everything starts from an idea, and gets some planning, and then it happens, so that's what we were able to see our ideas come from point A to point Z. And it showed us how the world works. We were able to go back to the city and see these commercials and see stuff and say like, hey, we can do that. Not only can we do that, but we have experience in that, and we see how these big agencies, they take what's happening in the youth, what's going on, and kind of just sell it back to them. We were able to see that kind of stuff. It just opened our eyes to a lot of things. We weren't able to see, like, it was 10 days of this, it's night and day of this. It wasn't like basketball camp, it wasn't stuff that we see every day, like that's filled in the inner cities, like sports dreams and, like music dreams and stuff like that. Granted, you can go there and if you wanted to and do that kind of stuff, but it just opened our eyes to there's a lot more going on in the world that's interesting, that we can do, so that's kind of essentially what it was. In that still, I never took up art or anything like that. It was more what Camp Caldera was instilling in me, and was instilling the children, was that we could solve things creatively, like and it also taught us to live in a community, which was important, because you can't just be a creative and not know how to like be in community. There's a lot of artists who are alone, and who being a full-time artist is not it's not as easy just as sitting in the studio and just posting stuff and selling it. There's a lot of business aspect to it. There's a lot of community to it. There's a lot of social aspect to it. What also Camp Caldera taught us was living in a community. We were able to learn taking what we need and leaving the extra and stuff like that. Like as far as like food and it's a lot of stuff, and learning how to there was always an abundance of stuff, so it taught us just how to live in a community, how to take care of our community, make sure everybody was fed and all this kind of stuff. It taught us like family, we got to experience a lot of different things, community, family, like entrepreneurship. It taught us a lot.
And so let me jump in there. Obviously, sadly, Dan Wieden recently passed away. What would you say, and I know that you worked with him for many years, not just in Camp Caldera. Tell me your favorite story of Dan that had the most impact on you.
My favorite story of Dan that had the most impact on me, I used to work at Wieden Kennedy for off and on for around like 7 years. And I had a struggle working there because it was, I didn't have a college education or anything like that. I'm only there because of Papa Bear, because of Dan. In the sense, it felt kind of like almost like a burden, kind of almost like I didn't know. I never knew who Dan was, until I was working at Wieden Kennedy. So it was kind of overwhelming. He was just always this older random white dude who loved me and I loved him, who wanted to make sure that I did good, who always had like dope conversations for me and stuff like that. Like when I saw this dude, it was always at camp. I never grew up knowing who Dan Wieden was. For me, it's just this random white dude who's just a Papa Bear. I'm from this inner city kid. I don't have a lot of experiences with older white men like this. Especially somebody that verbally says they love me. That doesn't happen. So I get to Wieden Kennedy. I'm like fresh out of high school. I don't know anything about advertising. I know a lot about like video production and photography and stuff like that, what I've learned at Caldera, but I don't know how any of this plays into what I'm going into, and so there was a lot of me like feeling inadequate. There was a lot of me feeling like this is a burden, like I have to be here because like I don't want to let him down. Like I love this dude, he's like kind of like a father figure in a sense, I don't know what I'm doing with my life, I'm walking into this, like, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm fresh out of high school, like, I don't know, and I'm walking into this internship with people from all over the world, different accents, stuff like that. It really played on me. It really hurt me. Like I ended up turning into an alcoholic working there. So there was this one time where I was the first time that I ended up going to treatment. I didn't end up staying. I left. Dan had this conversation with me, and I was telling him like, man, like I don't know why you would have me there. You know, like this. There's nothing. There's nothing I can offer to these people. Like there's nothing creative that I'm doing. These people are making Nike ads. You know, like what do you want me to do? Fresh out of high school, like I'm an inner city kid. Like seriously, what the hell do you want me to do? Like I'm around these people. Like I'm not like I'm sitting here like my job is like getting coffee and running errands, doing this, that, and the third. Just like being an assistant to a lot of people. You know, I'm seeing a lot of different things and stuff like that. Like I'm picking up on a lot of stuff. I'm really inquisitive. You know, like and I'm still that way to this day. You know. And I didn't know this about myself back then, but Dan knew this about me, you know, which is a big reason why he kept me around, you know. But I was always like just picking up on energy, picking up on what people were doing, you know, asking questions and stuff, like wanting to help out and stuff. But at the end of the day, I'm going back home and knowing that I'm not contributing to anything, you know, like I'm seeing commercials being produced, you know, what I know that I've seen the whole process and I know that my part of it was going to go get people like food and stuff like that. Like at the end of the day, that hurt me, you know, that like it made me feel like the smallest person in the world, you know, like it didn't feel good at all. So that kind of drove me to drinking and stuff like that. Dan understood. I didn't know this at the time about Papa's Bear, but Dan was also an alcoholic. He also had this issue with drinking. You know, it played a part in his career and his creative career, stuff like that, to a point where he had to cut it out. You know, I didn't know that about him. He told that to me, and he explained to me. He was like, Tristan, like I don't want you to be a fake me. You know, like I'm not keeping you around this Wieden Kennedy to be me, to be a fake me, to be, you know, I just want you to be an answer to somebody's problem. You know, it's not about, you know, being the next creative director or whatever it was. It's just about finding who you are. And I just want you to be an answer to somebody's problem, you know? And he was like, once you, he was like, figure out what it is you're good at life, what it is you're good at doing in life, do that, keep doing it, max out at it, and when you find yourself maxing out at it, remember that what you do is not who you are. And he kept repeating that, like what you do is not who you are. And he was like, so even remember right now, even what you're doing. When I was assistant, he was telling me that even if you're feeling like you're running to get 20 burgers, 1,000 burgers, you're maxing out at going to get burgers. That's not who you are, you know. Whatever, like what you do is not who you are. Just keep remembering that, you know. He was like, so no matter what it is, you don't need to be a fake me. Just I remember at the end of the day, just be an answer to somebody's problem. That's it. That's all you need to do in this world. Just be an answer to somebody's problem. When you find yourself maxing out at that, remember what you do is not who you are. That's the biggest thing that Dan taught me. I didn't understand at the time, and I didn't like it at the time. When he told me that that conversation, it didn't stick with me. Like he was trying to convince me to stay in treatment, but what he was telling me was like he didn't care if I stayed there or I didn't stay there. You know, I'm gonna figure it out one way or another. But he was trying to suggest that I stay there. At the end of the conversation, this is a powerful man with the most powerful words. You know, his words did not hit home right then and there. You know, I didn't stay at treatment. I left. You know, I went back to work at Wieden Kennedy. The alcohol took care of itself. I ended up back at treatment, and ended up working that time around. But that's kind of the biggest lesson that I kind of took from Dan. It's just that, you know, just be an answer to somebody's problem. Like you don't like, and when you find yourself like maxing out, what you do is not who you are. You know. So it reminds me, it keeps the work at the forefront, you know, it keeps me hopeful. I'm a painter, yes, I'm an artist, but that's not who I am. I didn't get sober so I could be a painter, you know. I didn't get sober so I could be an artist, you know. That was never anything that I wanted, you know. I got sober so I could be an answer to somebody's problem. I was like fuck this. I don't want to work in advertising anymore. I don't want to do any of this kind of stuff anymore. Marnie was a big part of this. She was a huge part of my story. She was so when Dan brought me to Wieden Kennedy, he didn't obviously have the time to keep me under his wing. He brought me there and introduced me to Marnie my first day and was like, here you go, Marnie, and left. And I didn't have anything to do with Dan for the rest of like the time that I was there, but I was like under Marnie's wing, you know. So she had a lot of oversight and everything that I was doing, you know. In this, she kind of saw how kind of my life kind of just evolved, you know. Once I got sober to be to do youth work, you know. There was a lot of things going on in my life that there was this one thing going on in my life. I was dealing with my grandmother having dementia, and I had to I was like her in-home caregiver. It was super stressful for me. I'm like newly sober, didn't know how to like handle my emotions and stuff like that, like how I usually handle my emotions, just drinking and stuff like that, you know. So it was just a lot of stuff going on. Somebody suggested I pick up art as therapy, and so I'm thinking like, hey, like, you know, I'm used to solving things creatively, you know. So somebody suggested that I do, like, I couldn't go to as many AA meetings as I was going to. I was stuck in like this basement, stuck like at home, didn't like trying to take care of my grandparents and stuff. Like, somebody suggested that I pick up art as therapy. And I was like, man, you know what? Like, I'm good with taking suggestions, you know. So I did that, and that's kind of where I found like art. I started I started putting words down on canvases and like the words that I was feeling of emotion, and then I would cover it up in color, and I would feel like that would be like a therapy session to me. Like once all the words were covered up in paint, then I would feel like I got everything out and I made it pretty. You know, I made all these ugly words that I was feeling, whatever it was, whatever thoughts that I was feeling on the canvas, and I covered it up with pretty colors. Like, you know, I felt like for me that was a process of taking something ugly to me, like my emotions, and sitting there and trying to make it pretty with just these abstract colors and just throwing paint on the canvas. You know, for me that was solving my problem creatively. I was loving that. I wanted to know more about art. I wanted to know more about painting, and this is where things kind of took off. So mind you, I'm getting sober to I wanted to get sober to work with kids. That was my whole reason, was to I still wanted to be an answer to somebody's problem. I love youth work. I was always working with Camp Caldera when I was adult. So this nonprofit work has been something that's just been instilled in me. You know, I've always wanted to give back since because I just know how much Camp Caldera works. You know, so as an adult, I've always wanted to do more of that work. So that's what I got sober for. So I couldn't. So that's initially what I got sober for. That's what I canceled everything for. That's what I gave up my whole life for. That's what I got sober for. To be of service to people. So I'm doing this. I'm painting this. I'm trying to figure out what what it is I love about painting. That I find out there's like a lot of artists that are white, and I can't really resonate with them, me being a black artist. So I just try to dig deep, more and more Google searches. I find a black artist by the name of Basquiat, and then I find out about this other artist named Warhol, and then I find it's just like learning about Basquiat just opened up my world to a whole bunch of other different things. Like, and what's cool about Basquiat was that he was he was a drug addict. You know, his story, I could relate to his story. You know, my dad was a drug addict. You know, I felt his story. You know, I felt his pain, you know, in a different level, because I know how it breaks up a home. You know, like when I heard about Basquiat's story, it just brought me back to my childhood, like everything that I was going through. You know, like I could see, you know, I could feel the emotions, you know, in his work. You know, it was just powerful to me, you know. And then him being him being an addict and dying from his addiction and stuff like that. That was just something that was like. That was super hit home to me as well, because I got sober and then I started painting, and that's how I found painting, you know. So it's like I felt like I had a personal connection to him, you know, because I felt like you know, it was kind of like, man, I wish he had the strength to do like what I just kind of like what I'm doing now, you know. And it was like, man, this dude was so powerful. Like, how can I continue his legacy? You know, like I'm sober now. Like, how can I continue Basquiat's legacy? And I was like, the best way I can do that now is by continue painting and stay sober. You know, this is how I can honor him. And so that's how I kind of do it. I was doing like a bunch of work like him. Marnie knew my whole story, just how close she is to me. I call her my mom now. And she was telling me, she was like, T, this is something that, like, she was watching me. I've been very vocal about everything that I do. You know, I believe in the power of storytelling. So I always post my social media, what I'm doing and stuff like that. You know, she was telling me, she was like, T, like, this is like what you're doing now. Like, painting is like, she was like, it's it, you know, like it's like, I believe you can do it. You know, there's something there that you can do. She was like, I want to commission you to do a piece that pays homage to Basquiat. So she did that. She gave me the money. At the time, I didn't know what a commission was or anything like that. You know, I just thought, so she was like, I'm gonna give you the money to go buy the supply. And I thought that was it. That was like, that's the end of the commission. You know, at that time I was super grateful. You know, I didn't want anything more. You know, I was like, somebody is paying for me somebody bought my supplies for me to sit here and throw whatever the hell that I feel like on the canvas, like me being emotional and like all that kind of stuff. Like, they're okay with that, you know, like, and they're buying supplies for me to do that. I was like, okay, for sure. Like, and you say I can do whatever I want to, you know, like, so like, so I was like, whatever. So I did that. She loved it. And then at the end of it, she gave me $500. I was like, I was like, Marnie, are you fucking serious? Like, at the time I'm doing youth work. I'm volunteering. Like, I'm working with kids. Like, like, I got like 2 different volunteer jobs. Like, I'm in like outpatient, like trying to like work on my life. Like, I don't have any money. Like, I'm donating plasma to get money, you know, like to pay my phone bill and stuff like that. Like, to get bus fare. Like, I'm broke, you know. And like, Marnie, are you serious? You're giving me $500? Like, I know what money is. Like, mind you, I used to work at Wieden and Kennedy, you know. Like, I used to get checks from there, you know. So I know what money is. And I know what not having money is, you know. I'm telling her, like, Marnie, like, are you, like, you really went to work for this money and you're giving me this money for what I just put on this canvas, you know? Like, are you serious? You know, like, are you really doing this, you know? Like, in that moment, something just like I'll never forget that. What it made me feel like, it was like, you know, I felt super validated, you know, like I felt like everything that I had worked like at Wieden and Kennedy, like I felt like all the pain and all the everything, all the lessons that I have learned there, like in that moment, I felt like that $500 was payment for that, like for everything that I had finally went through, all the struggle and all the kind of like all the hurt and all the like the pain and all that, and it wasn't even the $500, but it was just the somebody acknowledging that my story was worthy. You know, it wasn't about, she could have gave me $200. She could have gave me $100. She could have gave me any amount of money. It was just about her transferring that. I know how valuable money is, you know. It was just about her feeling that my story was valid, you know, that she wanted to pay for that, you know, like that. In that moment, you know, it felt like I felt like, you know, a creative, you know. I felt like finally, like, mind you, I was drinking. I felt like there's plenty of nights that I'm going home and feeling like, fuck, I'm not a creative. Like, this shit sucks, you know, like I'm not, like, they're getting paid for this, you know. I'm around people who are in the industry, people who are going to school to work at this place that I'm working at, you know, and they're like, they're getting paid for this, you know, like it you know, I finally felt like I was worthy, you know. I felt like I was valid, you know, like it felt like it was life changing, you know. It was that moment was life changing. It wasn't about me like trying to be an artist or anything like that, but it was more so just me, like the door was open, like it like I don't know, something just opened and like life was kind of unlocked. For me, it was kind of like I kind of like at that moment, like I was finally like out of the matrix, you know, like it kind of felt like I'm you know, it was insane, you know, like I've never imagined like having a full-time career off of something that I can create. Like, and having that door open one day, like, not like knowing, like, being broke, living in a basement, and like filling out, like, or not even filling out applications, but knowing once I get done with treatment and then I can go back to work and I'm volunteering and stuff like that, like, and then the next day feeling like, whoa, like, I'm like, I can actually, like, work from, like, I have something here, you know, like. And then not to feel like it was I don't know how to explain it, but it was that feeling there that made me feel like, you know, that I could, that gave me the power to keep doing it, you know. Marnie, like, so Dan was a huge part of this, you know, and I appreciate Papa Bear and everything, but it's just a part of my story. Marnie plays a huge part of my story as well too. Without Marnie, I wouldn't have, without her believing in me, without somebody just having somebody just believe in it, just the power of believing in people, you know, just what it could change, you know, just, it doesn't, it's not about me, you know, my story is not about like how Tristan overcame this or you know, that's such a small part of my story, because it's not something that it's not something that I focus on today. Like I got sober. Like I keep trying to remind, I got sober to work with youth. I didn't get sober to be an artist. I didn't get sober to have a career as a creative. That was never, I went 26 years of my life never thinking that I was a creative, especially like from like 19 to 26, like those 7 years, like really knowing that I was not a creative. And then just having these doors open, like it was like, I don't know. It was like a new lease on life, you know.
It sounds like you were validated as an artist in that moment, and you felt like, you know, your identity as an artist became true. If you're enjoying Creatives Off Script, make sure you check out Angle on Producers podcast, hosted by Emmy-nominated producer Carolina Grappa. With over 80 episodes released, the podcast shines a light on the unsung heroes behind your favorite movies and shows. Through her guests, Carolina demystifies the age-old question, what exactly does a producer do? By giving you an honest glimpse into what it's like to walk in a producer's shoes. These time capsule conversations help others, especially women, navigate their own paths in the industry. Past guests include formidable producers such as Eva Longoria, Lynette Howell-Taylor, Molly Asher, Stephanie Elaine, and many more. Find Angle on Producers wherever you get your podcasts. You are listening to the Creatives Off Script podcast, hosted by Assemble. So, tell me about your art a bit. Let's talk about your art. You depict prominent historical figures, a lot of them Black historical figures, as kings and queens. Why is that important to you?
It's important to me because, so this is the theory behind my art. It's important to me because I just want people to see me and not see my color, or not think that's a key component to who I am. You know, that's something that a lot of people take into consideration. You know, and me myself, you know, I struggle with it as well. I'm not immune from it at all. It's not just about Black people, but so I tend to paint Black people because I am Black. That's just who I am, you know. It's who I see, you know. It's part of my culture. That's just who I am. I feel like if I was a white artist, it'd probably be it'd be the same thing. That I'd probably, yeah. I mean, I'd paint, you know, white people. Or white people more, I guess, or whatever the case is. But the thing is that has nothing to do with my art. Or I guess it does in a way. So my theory behind it is that I want people to see me without seeing color. And so I want people to see. I just want people to see people without seeing color. There's been so much of my life where I feel like I haven't been afforded opportunities because of what I look like. Or I feel like just there's been a lot of that, you know, and it just a lot of like just it's hard to get away from it when it's something that I have to feel on a day-to-day basis, and it's hard. It's something that I can't like not think about, so it's I want people to see me and see people that look like me and not see color. I just want you to see, and more so, I want you to see humans. I want you to see people. So it's not necessarily just about me being black. I want you or my rap just about necessarily specifically black people. I think it's important for people to view people just as they are, and so with me, I feel like if I can show people somebody's face without their skin tone, without their color, if I can just show you what they look like, if I can just show you the shapes and the colors that I want them to be, and that's their, then you won't think of them, or you won't have that when you first see it. If I can introduce you to somebody with just these 9 colors and shapes, then you won't have any of that. You will view them genuinely as a person first. You will say they're beautiful. You will say that they're not beautiful. But in whatever the case is, you will see them in just their facial features. And the colors. We can do grayscale if you like, if you don't like color. But whatever it is, you just get to see this person without their skin tone. So that is what's most important to me is being able to depict people just as people, and not have to worry about me when I look at people, or when people look at me, having them take into consideration my background. It's something nice to take into consideration. Like it is. Granted, that is something nice, and people like take into consideration, different cultural differences, that's appreciated, but I don't want any like, it shouldn't be any like judgments though, or it shouldn't go to a negative extent, so that's just what it is about my art. I just want people to see people in just the shapes and colors that make them, like that's really what it is, so if I can show you a picture of George Floyd or maybe not Kanye West is maybe not a good one right now, or I don't know, Pharrell Williams, whoever it is, if I can show you a picture of these people or whatever, just some random, maybe some houseless person, some youth. I work with a lot of youth now who are on the streets. If I can show you a picture of somebody that just has a story, whatever it is, if I can just show you an image of this person, and then we talk about their story. If I can just introduce you to this person without you, with a blank slate. If you can meet this person with a blank slate, honestly, just look at this person. If you can meet them with a blank slate, what does that look like for us? As human beings, what does that look like for us? That's what the question I want, to pose with my art. It's not about, introducing people or showing people or specifically showing black people as kings and queens. It's not about that. But let me introduce you to this person honestly. Now, and if maybe they have a story, let's talk about their story. Maybe they don't have a story. Maybe it's just, but whatever. Hopefully, they do have a story. Well, let's just, for instance, let's just say they do. For just person A, let's just say, for example, we have person A here. You don't get to know anything. It's like a blind date, essentially. Mm-hmm. That's essentially what it is with art. Or that's essentially what my art is. It's a blind date with people. That's what it is.
Yeah, I love that approach, and I think that's such a positive. There's such a positive message in your art. From what I've seen, I really love that. And, you seem like a person that has a very positive outlook on life. I'm curious to know your philosophy behind paying it forward.
It's the only way I got here. Like it's I remember that movie when it came out, it stuck with me. And even more so nowadays, like I'm only here because somebody saw me, I'm only here because somebody took the opportunity to and when I say here, I mean just in this capacity, I'm only Yeah, I'm here because somebody paid it for it. It's for me. It's so mind you, I got kicked saying like I got sober to work with youth. I'm not nowadays. I don't. When I was a lot of questions when I was meeting with people, they would ask me how I would come up with the money to work with youth or to do these nonprofit things and to do all these ideas that I had and stuff like that. Like I wanted to start. I got sober so I could start a nonprofit. That's what I got sober for. I know when working in nonprofit, there's not a lot of money there. There's a lot of funding. There's a lot of donations that you need and stuff like that. That was a huge question that people were talking to me about this. When I got sober, is how will you find the money? Nowadays, I look back in those people. I laugh at those people that didn't see me or that didn't give me the opportunity then when I wanted to do something with these nonprofits, because it's not about the money or it's not about any of that kind of stuff. It's about just creating these opportunities. The money is gonna come. Nowadays I've been gifted this my higher power has given me this gift to be an artist, to be able to have a life where I can create income through my ideas, through my thoughts and stuff like that. I can create revenue. I don't have to worry about where the money comes from to work with youth now. I don't have to worry about where I'm going to get money to work with these nonprofits and stuff like that. Or I don't have to worry about that stuff now. Like that was it. That people didn't understand, and it hurt me. People didn't understand. Like I was telling, like I got sober, I changed my life. Like I was a drunk for sure. Like I was throwing parties at White and Kennedy. Like there was like getting in trouble like this. Downing fists, like there's a lot of stuff. Like my alcohol was showing up a lot of ways. I changed my life to work. I'm passionate about paying it forward. I changed my life to work with youth. There's nothing that you can tell me that there's money or whatever it is not gonna ever be an issue for me. I don't believe that, because this gift that I was given is able to create money. Is able to create revenue. So now I'm able to. So now, 2 days a week, I work with youth. I'm trying to take. I'm working with the commissioner's office, Multnomah County, to take meetings into Donald E. Long, which is a juvenile facility, and then another one for adults, which is like Inverness here in Portland, which is another facility, like another jail. So there's a lot about my life now. My life, I'm 4 days a week. My life has to do with working with people, working with paying it forward. Like 3 days out of the week I get to paint, and those are 3 days out of the week I just have to make sure like I have a place to live. Really, I got to make sure I can pay my bills. But it's that is what my life is about. And I feel like that's the main reason why I'm able to be a full-time artist is because. It's because that's what I'm focused on. I'm focused on paying it forward. Like this is, if I can do what Marnie and what Dan did for me to somebody else, then this world would be a much better place. Somebody saw me, somebody validated me with $500. If that's all it takes to change somebody's life, let's find those people. Let's find them. There's people who are already doing the work, who are already passionate about living the life that they want to live, a positive life, who just don't have the means to do so, Let's find those people, let's give them that opportunity. Let's find them. There are many people out there. I'm one of them, I am one of them, so there's no way that I can continue my life and not try to pay it forward. I think if I don't ever acknowledge that, it'll come to everything. I believe everything will come to an end, It's something I definitely for sure live by. It's why I'm not here to be a painter. I'm not here to be an artist. It's not. I'm grateful that I get to do things like this. That being an artist allows me the space to do things like this. But as you can see from talking with me, it's not. I'm not. It's much more than that. It's much more community based than that. Even with my work, it's much more community based than that. Maybe my work is essentially trying to pay it forward in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I love that philosophy, and a big fan of your work now that I've learned more about it. So thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate the conversation, and it's great to meet you.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Nate. Thanks for taking the time. I appreciate you.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and comment to help us spread the word. You can also find more insider content on the Assemble blog, and you can find me on all channels at Nate Watkin. And don't forget, if your producing team is in need of a project management solution, try Assemble today to streamline your production workflow. Our listeners received their first month free by utilizing the code OFFSCRIPT, that's one word, at checkout. You have been listening to the Creatives Off Script podcast hosted by Assemble.